Welcome to Breaking Through These Brick Walls. Today, I'd like to share the 13 steps for using DNA to find missing or unknown ancestors, presented by Delbra Brown. I always honor my grandmother. It is for the love of her why I dedicate my time, energy, and love of genealogy to the quest of finding my ancestors and family members who have been lost due to slavery. This is a photo of my grandmother's third great-grandmother, or a distant aunt, that I discovered while researching my ancestral lines. It is these types of finds that keep me motivated and encouraged to continue this genealogical journey. Now, first and foremost, DNA doesn't lie. It confirms, verifies, and often clarifies your connection to others. While it can sometimes cause confusion as you work to understand how you're related, the bottom line is, if the DNA says you're connected, then you are, and that makes you family. Before DNA, we relied solely on records to support the oral histories passed down through generations. Today, with the combination of DNA and documented evidence, we're able to both confirm and challenge those stories. But what happens when the DNA doesn't match the oral story you've been told? When I first started documenting the oral history from my grandmother, these were some of the accounts she told me. First, her father's name was Henry James Anderson. Second, he was 30 years older than her mother. Third, he bought 7 marriage licenses but only married 6 times. Fourth, he had 23 kids. After research, there were at least 26 kids. Fifth, he wasn't from Bullock County, Alabama. He was from Barber County, Alabama. And she even mentioned Marengo, Alabama. Sixth, her mother's name was Emma Marlila Lucina Lusanna Luvanna Elizabeth Sasherly Francis Cope. Seventh, she was born in Inverness, Alabama. Eighth, my grandmother had her first child at 13, my aunt, and she lived in Inverness, Alabama. Ninth, she later moved to Fort Davis, Alabama, where the rest of her children were born. 10th, we are related to the Andersons, McGrady's, Copes, Masons, Birds, and Fitzpatricks. I'm sure trying to find the proof in all of these accounts is the reason I've been on this genealogical journey for 36 years now. Throughout my research journey, I've identified patterns that have significantly enhanced my success in uncovering my ancestors. By applying these patterns, I've come to recognize that family research happens in stages. Level 1 starts with using DNA to establish connections with others. At this stage, you combine oral family stories with a few foundational research steps to begin analyzing the individuals identified as your DNA relatives. Now at step 2, you build your tree based on what you know. One tool you can use to build a tree is a pedigree chart. This chart details and outlines your family that include your parents, grandparents, cousins, and so on. Your father or paternal information is listed on the top, and your mother or maternal information is listed on the bottom. Every column on the chart represents 3 clusters of individuals. Column 1 should represent you as the base person on the chart. You are also generation number 1. Column 2 represents your parents, who are generation number 2. Again, your father is on the top half and your mother is on the bottom half. Column 3 is generation 3, and your grandparents and your first cousins are identified here. Column 4 represents generation 4, and your first great-grandparents and your second cousins are identified here. Column 5 is generation 5. Your second great-grandparents and your third cousins are identified here. And column 6 is generation 6, and your third great-grandparents and your fourth cousins are identified here. Each additional column represents the next sequence of relationships, and your cousins are defined based on the ancestor and the relative that connects them to you. This is how my pedigree chart looked after I had conversations with my grandmother and other family members. This pedigree chart represents my family tree spanning 13 generations, with a color-coded grid illustrating the varying levels of complexity I encountered while researching my ancestors. This is a fan chart, a different way of displaying my pedigree chart that helps organize and group ancestors from a different visual perspective. At level 1, step 3, you start searching for records to back up both the oral histories and the DNA matches you've found. This step is crucial because it turns stories and genetic clues into documented facts, helping build a stronger, verifiable family history. Now that you've probably taken a DNA test, your list of DNA matches and your goal to understand how they're related to you represent more than just relatives. They also reflect specific places and moments in time where your ancestors lived. These connections will guide you toward the records that can confirm and support your DNA matches. Some fundamental facts about DNA. Each person inherits DNA from both parents, receiving 23 chromosomes from their mother and 23 from their father. However, since we inherit 23 pairs of chromosomes from our parents, these chromosomes also carry genetic material from our ancestors. The way this DNA is passed down is random, meaning we don't receive the exact same DNA from our parents and ancestors as our siblings or other relatives. In other words, DNA is distributed randomly. To understand just how random the distribution of DNA can be, we often have to use other tools like DNA Painter. DNA Painter is a free, user-friendly online tool designed to help genealogists and family history enthusiasts interpret and visualize their DNA test results. It allows users to map shared DNA segments onto chromosomes, aiding in the identification of which ancestors contributed specific DNA segments. By entering in the number of identified centimorgans or CMs into the tool, it will show you the varying possible relationships a person could be to you. If we enter 8 centimorgans, a person who is 8 CMs to you could be from a half-second cousin, one time removed to an eighth cousin. Because of these varying degrees of relationships, it is important to research each person's information. And because DNA is passed down randomly, it's important to test your relatives, especially older family members, and to connect with cousins and others researching the same family lines. This helps build a more complete and accurate genetic picture. Scientists have studied the number of cousins you might have based on your DNA connections. Generally, the more distant the relationship, the less DNA you share from your common ancestors. This means you might not appear as a match to someone you're actually related to because you didn't inherit DNA from that particular ancestor. But not showing as a match doesn't mean you're not related. That's why it's crucial to connect with other cousins who share DNA matches with you and compare your matches to theirs. It's also said that when the amount of shared DNA, measured in centimorgans, is very small, it might be impossible to determine the exact connection. I believe it's not impossible. It just requires effort and research. Even if it feels like searching for a needle in a haystack, that needle can become priceless. For me, that moment came when I discovered a photo of my grandmother's ancestor. Now, there are some proven methods for finding an unknown or missing ancestor. Let's take a look at them. The Leeds method in DNA research is a technique used for organizing DNA matches in genetic genealogy, particularly to identify biological family lines in autosomal DNA results. It was developed by Dana Leeds and is especially useful for adoptees and others with unknown parentage. Diane Southard says with just one well-chosen DNA match, you can find your missing ancestor with tools that will help you sorting your DNA matches into the groups that represent the various branches of your family. She shares how using just one DNA match in your research can help you discover or confirm the identities of your ancestors and their other relatives, so you can build out a bigger, more accurate family tree. Now, I have defined a 13-step process that works if you follow it closely. No name, just steps. If you are not comfortable with spreadsheets, then this is a method that could very well be designed just for you. I will show you how these 13 steps were used to help JB. For all of his life, he knew who his father was, and he knew his sisters had taken a DNA test in Ancestry. At first, he tested in MyHeritage and found some new revelations that were uncovered from his origin information and his DNA matches, but he knew his sisters had tested in Ancestry, so in 2024, he decided to take the test there as well. After 30 days of waiting, once his results were complete, he discovered his sisters weren't his sisters, so that meant he did not know who his father was. So for him, we started researching from the beginning with level 1 research, which should be easier. Now that he realizes his father is unknown, he has disproven the oral account of his father's identity and must start his research from scratch. After speaking with his mother, he also discovered that she wasn't certain about the identity of her father or her maternal grandfathers, so this meant there are several unknown individuals in his family tree. So we decided to see if we could find out who his father was. Looking at his DNA matches, he has over 17,845 total matches, so we needed to filter these matches to only view his paternal line. So we start working the 13 steps process by starting with step 1, filter the match list. Looking at the DNA match list profile page, there are 2 options for filtering the match list. You can filter the list of matches by the parent, or you can choose to filter the list through the option on the page. Let's take a look at filtering the list by his parent. This view provides a high-level summary showing the number of DNA matches you have. This shows the number of matches on JB's paternal side. This shows the number of matches on JB's maternal side. This shows the number of matches who are related to him on both his maternal and paternal side. And this section shows the number of matches he has who has not been assigned to a specific parent. Each category provides a list of the most common last names which can be found in the trees of JB's closest matches. By selecting the View More option under each section, you can explore further details. These surnames are essential for identifying which names to focus on when analyzing your DNA matches for that specific pedigree line. Or if you prefer to filter the matches from the DNA match list profile page, you would just choose the filter option. A panel will appear on the right. Click the drop-down arrow at the bottom under Parent, then, within the Ancestry label group, select Paternal and apply the changes. This will filter out any matches related to the maternal line, showing only those connected to the paternal side. Once the filter is applied, we were only looking at DNA matches on his father's side. Step 2, note the highest matches. Now that you have your match list is filtered, take a look to see how your DNA matches are related to you. When viewing JB's matches, we see he has a few close matches, then some extended family connections. Next, look to see if they have a tree and a decent number of people in their tree. Now let's look at some common issues that you will face when analyzing your DNA matches. Many times you'll see people who have no tree, hardly any individuals recorded in their tree, or their tree is private. A workaround for these types of scenarios are to view their shared matches. By viewing the people who match you and the person you've selected, maybe they will have information in their tree that can help you figure out how they are related. But there are those cases where there aren't any identified shared matches to analyze. So you just have to identify a new match to analyze for this process. Step 3, select a DNA match to analyze. At step 3, we begin by analyzing the match who shares the closest relationship to you, and then review their family tree. In JB's case, his highest match is listed as either a first cousin or a half-aunt, along with some great aunts and uncles. If this match were a full sibling to his father, the amount of shared centimorgans would likely be higher. However, if she is a half-sibling to his father, the shared DNA makes sense. Therefore, we start by examining Yvonne. Because I worked with JB to add information to his tree, he now sees the common ancestor icon that tells him that his match shares a common ancestor with him. The more family members and DNA matches you add to your tree, the more common ancestor options you will see. Clicking on this icon takes you to the profile page, where you can view the ThruLine information. Step 4. Select a DNA match to analyze. After selecting Yvonne, we see in her bio that she is in Georgia, and she is trying to find her father. If she is JB's father's half-sister, then this again solidifies the half-aunt assignment she has to JB. Step 5. Review their tree for surnames. After selecting Yvonne's tree, a few things stand out. First, her father is not known. Second, her siblings are listed as half-siblings, which mean they have different fathers. Third, her maternal line is identified, so we have a tree that is a strong candidate to help JB identify his father's maternal family. Upon reviewing her half-siblings, we see they are identified as alive based on the private indicator, but she did have a half-brother who was deceased, so we would view his profile to see what information was recorded. Step 6. Note the surnames. Before we look at the profile of her half-brother, review the surnames of the sets of grandparents on Yvonne's mother, maternal, and paternal sides. JB shares connections to these surnames through his father's mother, therefore he would have DNA matches to these surnames as well, especially in the geographic regions indicated in their profiles. Looking at her tree, there are at least 3 sets of surnames. To be analyzed for matches. Because JB would not be related to Yvonne's father, that line would not be considered in his surname match list. Make a note of the surnames so that you will have them when you are ready to find matches to these lines. Now that we have the surnames we want to analyze in his DNA match list recorded, let's take a look at Randall's profile. Looking at his profile, we see Yvonne's half-brother lived in New Jersey. We also see that his mother was Beatrice Taylor Robinson. And he had one daughter who is alive, so she is listed as private. Looking at the photo on his profile, we see the program for his obituary and his photo. With this information, Mr. Randall was from the New Jersey area. JB shared he had family there, so he has enough information to discuss with his mother. After JB identified the surnames, he realized he had valuable information from Step 5 to share with his mother. Information that could help identify his father. This allowed him to fast-track the process and jump to Step 9, where he began reaching out to his mother and DNA matches for further clues. However, it's important to remember that the skipped steps will still need to be revisited later. Step 9. Contacting your matches. With the rise of social media, there are now many ways to connect with your DNA matches. JB reached out using several platforms, including the messaging service on the DNA testing site. He also used Facebook Messenger, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Once he sent out those messages, he understood that not everyone would respond, keeping in mind that some people take DNA tests simply to explore their ethnicity or origins, while others may not yet be ready to confront what the results reveal. It's important to respect where people are in their journey. Focus on those who are open to sharing and learning. These are the connections that will help you grow your family history. After he showed his mother Randall's photos, she confirmed she knew who he was and they had in fact get together in the past. So, based on the conversation with his mother and his DNA matches, JB confirmed Randall was in fact his father. Step 7. Review trees for common surnames. After JB shared the information with his mother, he could now backtrack back to Step 7 to continue the process of uncovering JB's grandmother line on his father's side. Even though JB could fast-track the process, he still had other DNA matches to analyze and to confirm, so we went back to step 7 to continue the process by reviewing the shared matches he had with Yvonne. This helped to identify a list of matches who are related to JB and Yvonne, keeping in mind if JB's father is related to her through their mother and not her father, then the people on this list are all related to her and JB through their mother's line, so we would be looking for people who have the surnames we recorded in their tree. Step 10, group your matches. Once we reviewed the shared matches, if we only had a free subscription, we wouldn't see the additional information we could uncover by using Pro Tools. With Pro Tools, we can view matches down to 7 centimorgans and even see how they are related to JB and the match we were analyzing. Once you have identified your shared matches, you can add them to a group. This will help you group your matches in a way that makes sense to you based on how they are related to you. Once you choose the group option, you just create a name for the group or select an existing group. Next, you select the list of people you want to add to the group and save the changes. Once they have been added to the group, you will see the icon representing the initial of the group. Step 11, add names to the tree. And with this one connection, JB found his father, his grandmother, great-grandparents, also other ancestral connections and cousins. Once this information was confirmed, the next step was to add them to his tree. Now we need to add these individuals into JB's tree. The first thing to do when building your tree from someone that is unknown or private is to add them to your tree. When we click on the option to add a father, it's okay if you don't have that information. You can list them as private or unknown. I usually give them the last name of the family that I am connecting them to. That helps me to remember the name that is associated with this private label. The goal is to solve these mysteries. Now that we've created a placeholder for JB's father, we can work on adding Yvonne to his tree. Choose the unknown person so that you can add additional information to that profile. As we worked on adding his father labeled unknown person, we realized that his father is also unknown. So we updated JB's father's name to be unknown person 1, and his father is labeled unknown person 2. By adding information in the suffix field of the name, you won't interfere with Ancestry's algorithm, but it is a visual reminder to you that you have more than one person in your tree labeled unknown person or the surname you've chosen. Now, in order to copy someone into your tree, you must have that person in your tree. So the next step is to add some very basic information about the person you want to copy into your tree. Since we will be copying JB's grandmother into his tree from Yvonne's tree, we will add some basic information into the tree for her, like her first and last name. Looking back at Yvonne's tree, we see that her mother is identified, and since her and JB's father, Randall, have the same mother, we can add her to the tree. Because Yvonne has already added information to her mother's profile, we will add her mother to JB's tree from Yvonne's tree. When adding a female to your tree, it's best practice to add their maiden name in the last name field. I like to add their married name so you can add that information into the suffix field, as that won't prevent you from receiving hints from Ancestry's algorithm. With JB's grandmother in the tree, we go back to the tree where we would like to copy information from. While looking at the profile in the tree, click on the information for that person, and a mini pop-up displays information about the person. When you click the 3 dots and the option to view their tree, or if you just click on the name, their profile displays. Or if you right-click on the details page, you will get even more options like looking at the page in a new tab or a new window. I use this process so that I don't lose the pedigree view of the person who I'm adding to my tree, and when I'm done, add this person, I just close that window and come back to this view to repeat the process with the next name. This process works best on a computer than a mobile device. On the profile page of the person you want to copy into your tree, click the Tools option. Within the Tools option, additional information is listed. Click on the Save to Tree option. A pop-up window displays for you to choose the tree and the name of the person you want to copy into your tree. Once you begin the process of adding them to your tree, a page will display with all of the names. Be careful not to add duplicate names of people who are already in your tree. This is a major reason why people have duplicates, because they are not reviewing the names to ensure they are not already in your tree. You must select at least a mother or a father, and after that, you just check the people you want to add. For JB's tree, we added all of the people identified by Yvonne because they are related to JB and his father. It's okay to add other individuals in your tree that you are not related to as well. But now, after discussion with the new family members and adding what he discovered to his tree, JB found out that his father did not know who his father was, so that presented a new mystery. So with this new mystery, we start over at step 3 to select a new DNA match to analyze because the list is already filtered for his paternal matches. We chose a different match to analyze. The goal would be to find a match that is not related to Yvonne, since her and Randall have different fathers, so we chose his next highest match, which was Barbara number 1, keeping in mind that she did not have a tree. Step 4, analyze the match. Analyzing Barbara number 1's profile, we see that she is identified as a potential 1/2 great aunt or first cousin 1 times removed. Step 5, review their tree for surnames. With Pro Tools, we can sort the shared match list between JB and Barbara by how everyone is related to her versus the default option of how they are related to him. Viewing how the match list is related to Barbara will eventually help JB to build a tree based on her information. Step 6, note the surnames. At step 6, we review the tree from the new list of matches looking for the surnames documented from Yvonne's tree. This process should yield the same surnames, as well as some possible new surnames that were not documented or known by Yvonne. Step 7, note the surnames. And like the process we used to analyze Yvonne's surnames, we record the new list of surnames based on the trees of the new matches we have just reviewed. Keep in mind there may be some unknown ancestors, and as you analyze the trees from different individuals found from the DNA match list, you will see how they are related to you based on the common ancestor you share. As we compared the list from Yvonne to Barbara, we noticed that Yvonne didn't have a surname that the other trees noted. That new surname stands out to be the surname of JB's grandfather, who is not Yvonne's father. So we researched his match list looking in trees of his DNA matches to see if they had this surname in them. Looking at the trees of the shared matches to him and Barbara for the surname Hardin, we see a pattern of surnames for JB's grandfather. And comparing the list of documented surnames from Yvonne's to this new list, we can see the pattern of new surnames. We repeat the process of documenting the new surnames, and this becomes the list of surnames for JB's grandfather. Step 8, filter DNA list for matches to new surnames. And now that we are basing this filtered list by these new surnames, we notice that Yvonne was no longer listed as a DNA match to these sets of grandparents, which means these are the matches to JB's father. Step 9, contact your match list. Again, utilize the many forms of social media applications to connect with your match list. We found Tamara on Facebook and LinkedIn. Step 10, group your matches. Step 11, add the list of names from your match list tree to your tree. Step 12, check ThruLines. ThruLines is a feature that helps you identify potential ancestors and relatives based on your DNA matches and the family trees of other users. It visually maps how you might be connected to your DNA matches by tracing common ancestors. When you mouse over or click on each match, you can view the information based on your ancestral connections, starting with your parents. This is an amazing feature to see how your DNA matches are related to you, but be sure to vet and check each connection before adding them to your tree. Step 13, repeat the steps. And now that you have completed the process of analyzing just a couple of your matches, you start the process all over again, analyzing each new match using this same 13-step process. And now, when JB looks at his family tree, it's more complete than he ever imagined, all thanks to DNA. And the level of complexity for JB now looks similar to my tree, just from a few phone calls. Always keep in mind that with each layer of complexity in your research, there are important steps that should not be skipped. While DNA can be a powerful tool to kickstart your journey, it should never be the sole reason for adding someone to your family tree. Each edition offers an opportunity to learn, and through that learning, you gain a deeper understanding of your family's history. This is particularly true when you adhere to the 13-step process for identifying an unknown or missing ancestor. Thank you for attending this session on using DNA to uncover unknown or missing ancestors.